In this session we will look at the vertical marketing system. Now, in traditional marketing there is a structured distribution channel. This ensures that there is a smooth transition from manufacturer to end customer. And a typical distribution channel consists of the manufacturer, the wholesaler and the retailer. And they combine to deliver the product to the customer. But each of them is separate. So the manufacturer is a separate entity entirely to the wholesaler. The wholesaler has a separate business with its own set of objectives, as does the retailer or the retailers. So each one is performing a function, but they are independent. Now, the major disadvantage of the approach is that it does increase costs. Each entity, the manufacturer, wants to make a profit, wants to supply the good and make a profit, as does the wholesaler, as does the retailer. So that the end price faced by the consumer could be quite high. So it's a cost problem. And if we look at it in terms of a simple, straightforward diagram, a simple diagram, well, we've got the manufacturer who designs the product and makes the product and brands it and sets a price and promotes the product. And then we have the wholesaler who buys the product from the manufacturer and therefore stock the product, if it's a physical product of course, promote the product, display the product, sell the product, deliver the product and finance the purchase of the product and holding the product. And then we have the retailer who buys, stocks, promotes, displays, sells, delivers and finances also. So each of them will add on their profit margin, and we have a considerable amount of overlap in terms of what they're doing. The wholesaler is stocking the product and so is the retailer. The wholesaler is promoting the product, as is the retailer, as is the manufacturer. So there are considerable overlaps. And all of this means that the consumer, the end consumer, will probably be paying more for the product than perhaps they ought to if a different system was in play. The alternative system, the vertical marketing system, the VMS, this contrasts with the traditional marketing approach. Here there is a desire to capture economies of scale, economies of size, and to eliminate overlap, so that in the case we had earlier, the manufacturer, the wholesaler and the retailer, they could collaborate in some way so as to avoid duplication and hence bring down the final price to the customer. So it's an effort to try and promote a more efficient way of working. It's a unified approach. Manufacturers, wholesalers and retailers all work together within a cooperative agreement. So what we have now is an alternative to the traditional model, the one we had, the diagram we had earlier. Now we have this idea that the manufacturer and the wholesaler and the retailer are somehow linked, and they are collaborating to bring the product to the final customer. Lots of examples. Tesco, the supermarket, is a major outlet, and wholesalers and Tesco itself is a major wholesaler, but other wholesalers must fit in with the Tesco way of doing business, as must the manufacturers. If they're going to have shelf space and if they're going to have their products promoted within Tesco, then they must fall in with what Tesco requires. On the other side of the coin, of course, they all benefit. They all benefit by eliminating the duplications and having a very efficient and streamlined way of making the product and distributing the product, getting the product onto the shelf and getting it at a price which will not just generate some profit for them, but it will perhaps bring the customer back because it is cheaper. Vertical marketing is only effective if there is one dominant channel member. This means that if we have manufacturing, wholesaling and retailing, then one of them must be dominant so that the others fit in line with it. As in the case of Tesco I've just mentioned, where Tesco tells the others what it requires. It's such a major outlet that the manufacturers and the wholesalers and the people selling to Tesco must fit in with what Tesco want. So the channel member can be either the manufacturer, the wholesaler or the retailer. In the example I've just given you, it would be the retailer, which is Tesco. And all of this depends on the level of vertical integration. Vertical integration means when one business buys a business that supplies it with the product, that's backward integration, or a business buys an outlet, that's forward integration. It's going closer to the market. And the degree to which a business owns the suppliers and the manufacturers and so on, going backwards, that's vertical backward integration. And if it owns a lot of outlets closer to the customer, in other words, then it's forward integration. Now, vertical marketing. Well, there are three types of the vertical marketing system. And the three types are corporate, administrative, and contractual. So let's have a look at these. Start with the corporate vertical marketing system. All stages within the production and distribution of a product are owned by one organization. So all stages within the production and distribution are owned by one organization. The organization has complete control over product development and distribution methods. Profits that are made during sales belong to one organization. In other words, this one organization makes the product and sells it directly to the public, or sells it to the client or the customer who requires the product. It may not be to the public, it may be to a specialist purchaser. But the point is, it's made and distributed by the one organization. And the example here would be Apple, who design their own products which are sold to customers in Apple retail stores. So Apple makes the product, makes the computers and the phones and so on, and it sells the phones through their own retail stores. Corporate vertical marketing system. The administered vertical marketing system. Well, channel members are financially independent. So the manufacturing, the wholesaling, the retail, they could be independent organizations. However, they may be controlled by a dominant business within the channel. This control and power comes from the organization's reputation or financial power. If you go back to the Tesco example we talked about earlier, Tesco is such a big buyer in the market that independent companies must fit in with what Tesco want. And they do so because of the reputation of Tesco and because of the financial power and the position of Tesco in the marketplace. So the dominant business makes all the decisions and expects the other channel members to take action upon the decisions. If Tesco want the product changed, want the packaging changed or the product amended in some way, then the manufacturers will experience the pressure to do so. If they don't, they may lose Tesco as an outlet, and that could be significant. The contractual vertical marketing system, well, this system works on a contractual basis with individual organizations to create economies of scale. So in other words, different organizations form contracts to manufacture something or sell it or make it available in the marketplace, and they do so under the terms of the contract. The agreement allows organizations to coordinate their activities effectively. In other words, once the contract is drawn, all the organizations know what they have to do, what their responsibilities are. And that means that it's much more rational, and they're able to specialize in their particular contribution. They specialize and they become skilled at production within their agreed terms of reference. They become skilled at producing whatever it was that's specified in the contract, and their costs will fall as a consequence. There are two main types. Voluntary chains. Organizations agree to share resources and purchasing initiatives. In other words, companies simply come together for particular purposes. For example, to buy in bulk and to negotiate discounts because of bulk purchases. And once the item has been purchased, they then split the bulk between them according to some contract that they had drawn up beforehand. So they share resources, or they share their purchasing initiatives. It may be they share resources in terms of distribution. If one company is operating a fleet of transport within a certain area, perhaps it could also take on board distribution for the other company on some agreed terms. And the second main type is the franchise agreement. Now let's look at the franchise system in a little more detail. It's a common form of contractual vertical marketing. The franchise system is an agreement between the franchisor, the seller, and the franchisee, the intermediary, to distribute their products and services while adhering to service standards and quality. So there are two parties to the agreement, the franchisor and the franchisee. Now, the franchisor, let's say it's McDonald's. The franchisor is McDonald's, so McDonald's set out the terms upon which the franchise is agreed. If the franchisee, the person who wishes to open a McDonald's outlet, agree to the terms, then they will supply the product as specified by McDonald's. Not just the food product, but the ambience, the design of the outlet, the whole feeling of the outlet, which is the product. In return, the franchisee benefits from McDonald's advertising, national advertising, and they benefit from the reputation of the product, and they benefit from support from the centre. and they will take a profit on each sale. So it's a contract between the franchisor, in the example I just gave you, McDonald's, and the franchisee, in the example I just gave you, the person who wishes to open an outlet. Of course, all the training and support would be supplied by McDonald's, and everything must run in a standard form as specified by the contract. So the franchisor provides support, training, operating systems, products in return for a fee or royalties on sales. So all of the cost of the outlet could be borne by the franchisee, and the franchisor, in the example we've just given you, for example, McDonald's, they benefit from a fee or royalty on sales. And the examples could be McDonald's, Coca-Cola, petrol stations, Burger King, and there are many in the market. Now, the benefits of vertical marketing. Well, it reduces the product cost by removing unnecessary intermediaries. We've already stated this, that the dominant business in the channel will almost dictate the terms, and the others will agree and follow, and in that way duplication is reduced. So production costs are reduced, overall costs are reduced. There's more control over product and distribution channels because it's, in a way, it's a simpler system. One company almost runs the channel. The dominant one runs the channel. Reduce conflict between intermediaries and improve coordination. Well, because the companies in the channel are all following the dominant one, there is less opportunity for disagreements or conflict. They must follow the dominant one. If they don't, they're not going to be a part of that channel, or they're not going to be a part of that whole system. They are going to be removed. So if a company disagrees with Tesco, let's say, Tesco could remove that company as a supplier and find an alternative. And the whole exercise is a learning experience for all members of the distribution channel. All members of the channel benefit through the experiences of working in that environment. And you would expect over a longer period of time for there to be greater efficiency as a consequence. The limitations of vertical marketing, well, it can become complicated trying to manage multiple businesses. It depends really on the power of the dominant business in the channel. If it has a lot of power, presumably it's not that complicated. It simply tells the others what it wishes to happen. If it's not that powerful, then it may be challenged. Its decisions may be challenged. It may become somewhat more complicated. There may also be a problem of insufficient resources, or supervision may be an issue as well. And these can cause production problems. There's a great deal of coordination that's required within the channel, and it is coordination with different businesses within the channel. So there may be all sorts of communications problems, understanding problems, and logistical problems, production problems. All sorts of issues may arise. So there may be issues in trying to coordinate and generate the efficiency, which was the raison d'etre for the whole exercise. But coordinating that may be an issue, and that may be a limitation of vertical marketing. So that's all we want to do about vertical marketing. It contrasts with the more traditional form. It's a different way of producing. It's It's quite common. Having said that, many large organizations use this. But that's really all I want to say for on this topic, I should say, for the moment. So thank you for watching.